Mark sat at the kitchen table, staring into his coffee. The golden morning light streamed through the large bay window, illuminating the smooth wood grain of the table. The warmth of the sun contrasted with the heaviness in his chest. Across from him, Linda flipped through the newspaper, though he knew she wasn't really reading. After more than 3 decades of marriage, he could read her like a book. She had something on her mind. "All right," he finally said, setting his mug down. "What is it?" Linda hesitated before folding the newspaper and placing it beside her. She sighed as if already expecting resistance. "It's Jake," she said. Mark's grip on his mug tightened slightly. Their only son, Jake, was 28 years old. Talented, intelligent, and ambitious, but also reckless, stubborn, and struggling to establish financial independence. Over the years, Mark had supported him financially more times than he cared to admit. First, it was tuition for college. Then rent when he switched careers. Twice. Later, it was money to help him start a business, which collapsed within a year. Now, he needed help again. "He got laid off," Linda continued, her voice soft but insistent. "He's struggling with bills and doesn't want to fall behind on rent. He just needs a little help to get back on his feet." Mark leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. "Linda, when does it stop? He's almost 30. We're supposed to be preparing for retirement, not bailing him out every few years." "But he's our son," she said earnestly. "If we don't help him, who will?" Mark exhaled. It wasn't that he didn't love Jake. He did, fiercely. But he also knew that every time they stepped in, they made it easier for Jake to lean on them, rather than stand on his own. At 55, Mark and Linda were transitioning into what was supposed to be a new chapter of their lives. Their careers were winding down, and conversations about downsizing and retirement had started creeping into their daily lives. The days of homework, school pickups, and teenage drama were over. They had imagined that their responsibilities as parents would gradually fade into the background, but that wasn't the case. Instead, they found themselves financially entangled with their grown son, unsure of where to draw the line between support and enabling dependency. Their friends had warned them about the boomerang generation, but they hadn't expected to experience it firsthand. More and more of their peers were dealing with the same thing, grown children who, despite their age, still leaned heavily on their parents for financial and emotional support. Linda, ever the nurturer, felt that it was their duty as parents to be there for Jake, no matter how old he was. Mark, on the other hand, believed that at some point Jake had to stand on his own 2 feet. "Remember when we were young?" Mark asked one evening as they sat on the couch watching the news. "We struggled too, but we figured it out. We didn't have parents bailing us out every time something went wrong." Linda sighed. "Things were different then. The economy was better. Jobs were more stable. It's not like that anymore." "Maybe," Mark admitted. "But if we keep stepping in, how will he ever learn to take care of himself?" The following weekend, they met up with their longtime friends, Tom and Susan, for dinner. As they enjoyed their pasta and wine, the topic of adult children inevitably came up. Susan laughed, though there was an edge of exhaustion in her voice. "Emily moved back in with us after her divorce. She was supposed to stay for 6 months. It's been 2 years now." Tom shook his head. "She doesn't pay rent, barely helps with groceries. We tried setting boundaries, but it's hard when you see your child struggling." Mark and Linda exchanged glances. "So what are you going to do?" Linda asked. Susan sighed. We love her, but we've realized that we're enabling her. We've decided it's time for her to move out, even if she doesn't like it. Mark took a slow sip of his wine, contemplating their words. Maybe they weren't the only ones facing this struggle. That night, as they lay in bed, Linda turned to Mark. So, what do we do? Mark exhaled, staring at the ceiling. We help Jake, but with conditions. No more free handouts. If he needs money, it's a loan. We set up a payment plan. Linda frowned. That feels so harsh. It's necessary, Mark said. We have to teach him responsibility. Otherwise, we're just prolonging his struggles. After a long silence, Linda nodded. Okay, let's do it. The next day they invited Jake over. He looked exhausted. His shoulders slumped. He sat down at the kitchen table, the same table where, years ago, he hadn't done his homework and celebrated birthdays. Mom said you wanted to talk, he said warily. Mark nodded. Jake, we love you, and we want to help you, but we can't keep doing this the same way. Jake frowned. I just need a little help. Linda placed a hand on his. We're willing to help, but there have to be boundaries. If we lend you money, it's a loan. We'll set up a payment plan. Jake's face darkened. A payment plan? You're treating me like a stranger. No, Mark said. We're treating you like an adult. For a long moment, Jake said nothing. Finally, he exhaled. Okay, he muttered. I get it. Linda squeezed his hand. We believe in you, Jake. Over the next few months, Jake found a new job. It wasn't his dream job, but it was stable. He learned to budget, to plan, to manage his finances. One evening, Mark's phone buzzed. Hey, Dad. Jake's voice came through. Just sent my first payment. Thanks for believing in me. Mark hung up, a smile playing at his lips. It hadn't been easy, but maybe, just maybe, they had made the right decision. Months turned into years. Jake had grown more independent, and Mark and Linda had settled into their new phase of life. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, Linda turned to Mark. Do you think we did the right thing? Mark nodded. I do. It wasn't easy, but he's better for it. Linda sighed, leaning into him. I just wish parenting ended when they turned 18. Mark chuckled. It never really ends. It just changes. Linda smiled, squeezing his hand. Yeah, I guess you're right. As the sun dipped below the horizon, they sat in comfortable silence, knowing they had done their best, not just as parents, but as guides, teaching their son how to truly stand on his own.